through Pro, he answered the question that I was going to ask next. But that's a good way to finish, I think, from this part, really, on a message of hope. So he's happy to answer any questions that people have. So do shout them out, maybe.
And comments. And I don't know all the answers. People will know the answers.
This is just...
Yeah.
Can everybody hear me okay?
I'll have to stand up, Jackie.
Okay, this question's just formed in my mind. It's you talking about 1945. And I've been very involved through work and voluntary activity in people's access to the countryside. And so after 45, we had the National Parks Access to the Countryside Act and all of that stuff, which gave us the creation of national parks, which was due to the Kinder Scout movement. Can you see parallels between that and XR and what's happened and Greta Thunberg and so on, and how that's influenced the Labour Party around going for climate zero?
Golly, I mean that's a tough one because I don't know too much about the campaign that you're talking about. I mean I know of it obviously, but I'm sure you know far more than I do about that particular campaign. I think what drives people is just actually the awareness that that we are in dire danger. I mean, there's just no question. The Swedish young girl said, Greta Thunberg said, I mean, you can't ignore the science. And I think the desire to ignore the science will get even greater if Johnson did happen to get back in, because the desperation to do a trade deal with Trump, and Trump might lose his job next November, so he'll want to get that trade deal through, and he'll want it favourable to the states, because that again will help him get re-elected. And we know what that means. I mean, it means the antibiotics in the beef. It means the chlorinated chicken. It means that part of the deal, I think, that was revealed in the document that Jeremy produced, or was leaked to Jeremy and to Labour, was that climate change cannot be included as a consideration in any trade deal. So I mean that's terrifying, and we know Johnson will pursue that. So that means that it's that climate change is to be disregarded, and the health standards are to be disregarded, and so on. And that cuts us out of a lot of European trade, so we're again more dependent on America and the Singapores and all the rest. So that's seriously bad news. But I hope it will mean that Extinction Rebellion will be even more motivated and even more driven to come on the streets, and we must spread throughout the people as well, and not just leave it to those who have made a stand so far. So I think if Johnson moves to the right, then I think the campaign for the environment must increase and will increase, because the science is so plain. I mean, how much clearer could it be? I mean, no one can really deny it. So I think that if the worst happens, that will be a big flashpoint. Should be, certainly should be. Oh, sorry.
Okay, well, we'll learn for the next time. Any other questions? So just shout them out and I'll relay them.
Your theory, so people that are fearful vote Conservative, and it's always prey on that. How can we counter that?
Right. So how can we counter the fear that the Tories, use to prey on people?
I think you'll know the answer to this just as well as I do, really. I'm very wary of standing here as some kind of expert on all this. I think we can't leave it to an election. I think if there is one criticism of the party over the last few years, it is that we haven't been in campaigning mode until a few months ago when the election looked likely. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, better.
Okay. And I think the next election starts on Friday. I mean, it's tough to think of. We've got to, if we win, and let's hope we do win, then we need a big movement to argue for the programme in the manifesto, because there will be huge pressure to dilute it, to not to do it. Obviously, the financial institutions will operate against us, so we've got to be really confident to carry it through, and that means a big movement, so that Jeremy and John are not seen as the far left. There's a whole supportive left underpinning them. But how do we counteract the fear? Well, I mean, as I say, but by constant explanation and engagement on a campaigning level. I think one thing that we haven't had is a media policy, because we don't have a policy on the press, and we can't say we will defend the freedom of the press because we don't have it. We need to establish the freedom of the press, and I think that because at the moment the press are owned almost entirely by very rich men. Most of them live outside the country, but it's their agenda. You walk through, news agents or a supermarket, see the headlines. They're all almost entirely right wing and savagely right wing. And when it's not about the election, it's about benefit cheats, or it's about migrants taking houses that belong to everyone else, or taking jobs, or about too many migrants. It is the hostile environment in the press, and then the broadcasters echo that.
That's right.
And they say, well, it's not our headlines, it's theirs.
Exactly.
But they echo them. They don't echo the Morning Star, for example. The Morning Star doesn't exist, as far as the BBC is concerned.
That's right.
It's not a newspaper, so they never acknowledge it. So the press and the broadcasters are an echo chamber, one to the other. And the BBC and ITV pursue the stories begun in the press. So I think we need a media policy, and I think it's got to be related to who is for a license to have a national paper. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, and I don't know. I couldn't begin to frame the language, but I think collectives of journalists and readers and the workers who bring the paper out, the collectives, cooperatives, certainly no censorship of ideas. But that way have a diversity of ideas, so that people that have some democratic viability, some democratic legitimacy, produce our news, reflect our news. And I think that the television organisations at the moment are controlled by the state appointments. The appointments at the top appoint the news editors, and all the way down. So it's appointments from the top by the government, and they become institutions of the state, and they defend the core interests of the state. The hierarchy, the monarchy, the established church, and so on. So I think we've got to start thinking clearly about the how our democracy is reflected in public discourse. And we haven't had that discussion. It's not surprising. Tom Watson was the shadow minister, so you wouldn't expect anything creative like that. But we've now got to open that discussion after the experience of these last few weeks.
Absolutely. Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
Okay, and Andy?
Yeah, could I just add to that last comment? I think that one of the biggest threats in this country is the destruction of local newspapers. Talbot, given its size and its importance, has no